with a simple task up to age 50. This is completely different than what everybody else has found, whether they're looking at cross-sectional studies, which wouldn't be all that surprising, but even like Fozard et al. In the Baltimore longitudinal studies found more of a linear trend for simple as well as for the choice. And one of the things I also don't like so much about Dare and Dare is that they don't actually explain their results and talk about the meaning so much. I kept going back and forth looking for some of these things this last week, getting ready for today. They say in the beginning, kind of setting up the study in their introduction, that they think that one big advantage of their sample, aside from its swamping huge size, is that it's much less selected from the population of Britain, whereas the Baltimore longitudinal study is a sort of upper education, upper SES sample for the most part. Why that would make a difference between a linear effect and simple reaction time and this kind of curve linear change? They don't come back to the discussion. It wouldn't be obvious to me. I suppose, if anything, wouldn't you kind of think that if you have an upper SES kind of sample, more educated people, more money, probably better health, that they would stay faster longer? Does anybody see another explanation?
I would look at it also with a wealthier population. They're going to be more inclined to more physical activity throughout their lifespan.
Yeah.
So if you're playing tennis later in life, I would expect you to have a quicker reaction time through your 70s and 80s as compared to someone who's been sedentary since 40.
Yeah, but this is the unselected British sample that's staying fast into their 50s. These are exactly the kind of things I thought too about. And I can't tell you how many times I've read their discussion section in the last week. So, did I miss something? Did they offer an explanation?
Oh, I haven't read this since last week, and I was trying to glance really quickly, but sometimes it looks curvilinear when there's actually an interaction effect. And that if they didn't test for that with income in here, then it would be, you would get a linear effect in a homogeneous SES group. But if they maybe did an age by SES interaction term in here, it might just be two lines with different slopes rather than
But this is the less selected sample.
Oh, this is a homogeneous group?
This is the group. This is the group that's more selected from all of Britain. This is the less homogeneous group.
Right. So then there would be more variability in SES here.
Yeah.
So
you think you might have an interaction effect that would make these people look flatter?
Well, then if you have two groups with different slopes, it'll appear curved unless you test for two. That would make sense.
So this might be steeper for the poorer people. Think about that.
Another problem that I saw with just the construct of the study is they said at one point, and I forgot where, but their reaction times became better with practice. Mm-hmm. But after a while with these tests, I've actually used very similar rigs where it's a light going down, kind of like a line of lights, and you hit the button before it hits the end, or you have to hit it on a certain light. It becomes anticipatory. It's no longer reaction time. The reaction time is like playing dodgeball and there's a ball flying at your face. And you can only do that so many times before you expect that ball to come at you the same way. And same thing with the lights. For the first couple of times, you're not really gauging the speed of the lights that quick as you watch them, or whatever the stimulus is going to be.
Aren't these just like flashing on them without any warning? Or?
There's the one, I read it kind of late at night, so
yeah.
I could be wrong. But even with that, you still become more attuned to it. And eventually it's not as reactive as it is anticipatory as you get into the test.
Like the Stevens et al. People too, they average across a bunch of trials and stuff. They don't have the individual. The way it was done, they had like automatic devices being taken out to people in the field, so they don't actually have the individual item by item trials, like average response.
My concern would be, though, is if some people are more apt to improve, whereas others
Yeah.
are not.
Do you expect age differences in that?
I wouldn't necessarily expect age differences. I'd almost expect like class differences to an
Yeah.
extent. For some people some people just adapt better to things, though. So I don't know. That's just a flaw that I didn't see.
Maybe they do like playing darts in English pubs or something. Anyway, so this would, now, and again, it's something else to think about. I would say comparing age extreme studies, you wouldn't see any difference between this kind of result, comparing just these people to people in their 20s, and this kind of result. So you wouldn't know whether the middle was linear like this, or whether the middle was kind of curvilinear, and people actually, say, pretty quick to 50, or where you have a little bit accelerating, but a more straight line path. This is a more demanding kind of task for processing, so it's probably not too surprising that you would see change earlier, even if this was a more typical kind of pattern. Now, they spend a lot of time on the variability component here, and they talk about several kinds of variability in reaction time. In the introduction, they basically only focus on one kind of variability, and what they graph here is the variability on average within subjects rather than between. So, and this points out to a couple of interesting things that could take you potentially in different directions. Again, they explain this more setting up the study, then they come back to it later and tell you how their results help elucidate this. But intra-individual variability points out, as I say, Patrick Rabbit and his colleagues have been pointing to this for a while and arguing that what actually happens with age is not that you get slower overall, but that you get slower some of the time. Again, we're talking about this, these very simple kinds of tasks here. So that people's fastest reaction time doesn't change very much as you get old. But you have what Rabbit refers to as unnecessarily long reaction times on some trials, and that pulls your overall score down. So that you then have to wonder why that would be true, but it's a different picture than saying everything about you is getting slower. It tends to point, it would undermine arguments that what's going on is something that is very, very central and very basic, that your neuron processing at the synapse level, or your brain processing is slowing down overall, which would have to slow down everything. Or that because your whole metabolism is slowing down with age and your whole internal clock is slowing down, that would have to slow down everything. If you're still as fast some of the time as you ever were, and then every now and then you just stall, something else is going on. They point to different kinds of illnesses and even subclinical changes in the body that that are more common in late life, but do not affect everybody in late life, that seem to be associated with this kind of increased within the person variability. I have to say that subjectively, I hadn't actually thought about this until I read the paper, but once I thought about this, it makes a certain sense subjectively, in the sense that you just kind of catch yourself like every now and then, for reasons that I usually can't pinpoint, I just stall out on some task. I'm doing something that most of the time I can do very quickly,